Hi, welcome to Ladies Leading. I'm your host, Jessica Gendron. Maya Angelou once said, "There is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you." I believe in the world today there are too many stories of female leaders left untold. It has become my personal mission to give those stories a microphone. Ladies Leading intends to share the real stories of female leaders on their journeys to and through leadership, so that we might gain precious insight and advice from leaders just like them. We're giving women the microphone. Welcome to Ladies Leading. Our guest today is Angela Freeman, and I would like to give her the microphone. So Angela, welcome. We're so glad to have you. Would you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. So thank you, Jessica, for having me on Ladies Leading. My name's Angela Freeman. I am an intellectual property and patent attorney at Barnes and Thornburg in Indianapolis. Our main office, we have 13 offices around the country, but main office is Indy. I am a molecular biologist by training, so spent a whole first career as a scientist in the lab, in the bench, loved it, absolutely loved it. But kind of got to a point where I wanted something a little different in my life, a little more challenge, a little more opportunity to give to the community. And that didn't involve sitting in the lab forever and ever. So kind of branched out and decided that I wanted to do something different, but didn't really know what that was or what that looked like. I'm a country girl. I'm from Kentucky. So didn't even know the idea of being a scientist was a real thing, and certainly had no clue that being a patent attorney was a thing. When I thought of lawyers, I thought of family law and criminal law. That's all I knew. And I really didn't want to have any parts of either one of those. So when I kind of was introduced by few mentors to this concept of patent law, this kind of merger between science and law, I thought, oh, that's all me. I've got to, I've got to do that. And really, as I said, I had a first career, so it was really one of those things. I was getting a little older, a lot older, and it was really something that I don't want to have any regrets in my life. Let me apply to law school. I was working a full-time job, loved my career. So it wasn't like I was kind of stuck in a hard place. I was in a good position, but just looking forward and thinking about where I wanted to be in 5 or 10 years, I knew that I needed to make a change. So law school is one of those things that was really like, I'm not losing anything either way. Let me just roll the dice. If they let me in, so be it. If not, oh well. I don't have to regret and worry about woulda, coulda, shoulda, right? If I would have done, 20 years ago. And for good or for bad, they messed around and let me in. And it's kind of been a uphill battle. But man, one, I'm so thankful I did. I was in my mid-30s when I went to law school with the intent to graduate before I was 40. So it was actually, because it was that time in my life, it was actually really fun for me. It was different. It was, a completely different group of people. And what I really enjoyed about law school was the opportunity to bring all these life experiences that I had now had into a classroom and have real conversations and debates with other full-time employees for the most part, because I was going to night school. So that was a lot of people who were working during the day and then come to school at night. And it was great. I mean, we had some really heated debates, but it was awesome. It wasn't your typical law school experience. And I look back on it and so thankful I went. So thankful I bit the bullet. I want to just say, for the ladies out there, I had a husband, I had a child, I had a mortgage, and it was really taking a leap of faith. I really had no idea what I was getting myself into. I certainly didn't have any idea how challenging it would be. But even now, I look back and I'm still amazed that I got through it as well as I did, and have come out on the other side. So that's kind of who I am in a nutshell.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about how you ended up studying microbiology and being a scientist. You know, was there people along the way in your youth that fostered that in you, or?
Yeah, so I just wrote an article and I said, I have always been a woman in STEM. When I look back on my even high school and elementary, I've always done well in math and sciences. So my mother kind of pushed me there because she knew somehow that at least has to mean you can make a living and be independent, right? Like
Yeah.
she knew that, it wasn't called STEM back then, but she
Right.
knew that math and sciences and kind of those technical areas was really a good place if I could get in. I think she recognized that there were going to be challenges for me as an African American female in that space,
Right.
but she knew that I had the intellect for it, and I had great teachers. Again, I'm from a little country town. Everybody knew me, and I knew everybody, and I just had wonderful teachers who saw in me potential and pushed me. And my mother, signed me up for every kind of STEM camp or science this or, just anything she could get me into. And so I went to college knowing on scholarship, knowing that I would go that way, some type of science. I really planned to be a chemist. That was my plan until organic chemistry knocked me out. Like I took it twice. I got a C in both times. I think to like get a degree in chemistry, you had to get a B in organic, and I took it twice and couldn't do it. I'm like, okay, well, there's that. So that kind of led me toward the biology track, which ended up being a blessing because I ended up going to undergrad, got a double major in biology and chemistry, but then went to grad school where I was introduced to molecular biology, not microbiology.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Which
Not a
is a
scientist.
completely different thing. I would know a lot more about what's going on now with coronavirus if I had taken microbiology, probably.
Sure.
But anyway, went down the path of molecular biology, studied fungus in grad school, which isn't sexy or beautiful at all. But it was interesting. And the idea that you could determine lineages of plants and fungus and what ultimately I end up doing in my career at Lilly, which is looking at lineages and ethnicities of people and seeing how they are genetically different and how those differences, from those differences, you can see lineages of people and plants and how, some are genetically more similar and different. And that all translated into people. So when I was at Lilly, fast forward a few years, go to grad school, get a little job at a research lab, making absolutely no money, and decide, you know what, I've been in school long enough. At this point, I've got to be able to make some money. And heard of this small company down the street. I was in Louisville, Kentucky, called Eli Lilly and Company. I never heard of them. Thing. Nothing. I mean, and I'll never forget coming to Lilly for an interview and just being amazed. I mean, because again, I'm a country girl. I had never seen this huge campus and marble floors and hallways and, I had never seen any of that. I remember calling my mother and saying, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I have to work here. Like, this is beautiful and amazing. And they've got a cafeteria and a doctor's office. And, it was just something I had never been exposed to. So had a beautiful career at Lilly as a molecular biologist, literally developing assays for clinical trials for cancer, genetic assays that I developed. And it was just awesome. It was a really awesome time of really learning science and feeling like, wow, I really am a scientist. Like, this is for real, not just what I had read in books, and really knowing that, if this is all my career will ever be, this is pretty impressive, and I remember going home for Christmas and talking to my grandfather who had diabetes and was taking Humulin from Lilly with the Lilly logo. And he taken so much pride that, wow, my baby's working there, and he'd also give me down the road about how expensive his drugs were and how it made no sense for his drugs to cost as much as, and I remember having that conversation, Granddad, you have no idea, how long it takes and how many people it takes to get these drugs. At the end of the day, he didn't really care, but there was a lot of pride in that. And so that was kind of my whole first, 12, 13 years in science, was at Lilly, being a bench scientist, and that being my day-to-day routine.
When in that experience did you start to lead? When did you feel that moment for you?
So that's a really great question. So being a woman of color from the country in science, I've always, again, I'm from the country, so I was always one of few people of color or diverse people. I just kind of got used to that. I think it didn't even faze me. I came to Lilly. You're coming to, Midwest Indiana, is as diverse as it is, because unquestionably it's an international company. There are plenty of other people, but not as many African American people, particularly on the science side. Now, if you go to marketing and finance and sales, all kind of, diverse people, but in science, like straight up in the lab, there just weren't. So I always knew that I was kind of on Front Street, like all eyes on me. I think I've always kind of felt that, like, you're the one that's different, so you got to show and prove. But I think when I really felt like I was truly in a leadership position, even though, please know, I was a peon the whole time. Like, I'm a lab tech, like I was never in executive. I want to make that clear, because I've never, ever been a manager, executive supervisor, and have chosen that path. I've been asked to manage many times. My husband is a people manager, and I see what he deals with. And I'm just like, I don't want to do that. That's dealing with everybody else's problems. I don't want to do that. So I kind of liked the science side, and the leadership came. Get back to the question. The leadership came when I got involved with the African American Forum at Lilly. Basically a African American affinity group, but it took me out of science and got me in front of a lot of African Americans who were pretty influential throughout Lilly, that I just didn't know, and they didn't know me because I'm stuck in the lab, right? Nobody sees me. And I kind of was always outspoken on diversity, because I'm always one of few women in the room, and certainly few women of color. And so that really gave me a platform to lead. And so I became the co-chair of the African American Forum, which was a big conference, basically, of African Americans at Lilly, where they would bring not only the execs and the people in the Lilly headquarters, but bring all the salespeople from the field into Lilly and have a big one-day conference. It was huge, and certainly the biggest thing I had ever led. And I rocked that. I look back on it now, like, I was pretty bold. I remember making some comments. I just had somebody come to me maybe 2-3 years ago and say, I remember you at the African American Forum, because I made some kind of off the cuff comment that I probably had no business making, but just about, being a woman of color and how, that kind of experiences. And that really put me on a platform, I think, where people really kind of noticed me. And from that, and there were all kinds of things I was doing in the science department, but again, nobody in the corporation really knew about that. So all those things cumulatively together led to me being awarded a Global Diversity Award at Lilly, where my picture, I got interviewed, I got to meet the CEO, got to talk to him about some of the things I was seeing, like, on the front line, because even with all the people that were acknowledged in that, they were execs, right? VP of this and director of that. Again, I was a peon, like, straight up. So that was huge, and from that, I'll never forget, Alicia DeCudro, bad female lawyer who was a big time exec at that time. I knew her name, didn't know her. She was also recognized by Lilly for that diversity award. And so when I was speaking to the CEO, at some point she came up to me and said, hey, Angela, you really represented yourself extremely well. If I could ever do something for you, please let me know, blah, blah, blah. That kind of led to 2 years later, she being the only attorney I knew asking about, hey, I heard about this patent law thing. What do you know? And she's like, oh my goodness, Angela, yeah, of course. If you're a scientist, if you're interested in law, you got to look at being a patent attorney. And she sent me kind of over to the patent attorneys at Lilly and said, go talk to them, go. And so I kind of spent a year talking to patent attorneys, learning what that looks like, what school looks like, how do you do that, how hard is it, those kind of things. But when I look back, I mean, and I think this is everybody, but when you look back, you kind of see how all the little things played a role to get you to that pivotal point. For me, all the little things I had done with regard to diversity and leadership, I was on the reward and recognition committee, just small things, but they kind of added up, led me to that diversity award. And that really was where the seeds of my next career really got planted. And that was 2006, 7. And I didn't leave Lilly till 2012. So, that was several years, but it was just the little steps that it took to kind of get you to that point. I spent a year talking to the Lilly folks. Then you spend a year, I spent a year taking the LSAT and, all that stuff, just getting ready. And then you spend a year applying, how it goes. But So all in all, it took, about that time. But it was perfect timing because before that, I wouldn't have even considered leaving Lilly. I wasn't in a position, but I had been there long enough at that point. I'd been there over 10 years. I'd gone through enough kind of ups and downs with the company to realize, okay, I need to start thinking about what I'm going to do long term. And I had an awesome female mentor. And I need to mention Catalina because she was amazing. Female, lesbian, Colombian mentor. She is the baddest chick to this day, I know. She's traveled the world like 15 times. She goes hiking in the mountains with nobody. Like, she's amazing. But she came to Lilly for about a 2-3 year period. Now that I look back on it, it was a little frame of time, but long enough to pour into me and train me and make me, at that point, what I really knew to be a true scientist, like really good, because she was world renowned. She had been everywhere. And she also said, Angela, you need to figure out what you want to do. And whatever you decide you want to do, I'll help you do it. And she really did. And what she did for me was I decided to go law school. And what we did strategically, which I appreciate, she put in my performance management plan as a scientist that I was going to begin going to law school. And what that did was make it okay. It was already in my performance plan such that it was a path forward. So it wasn't this kind of, well, why is she going to law school? That has nothing to do with science, right? And that was huge because Catalina, like a year later, ended up leaving the company. But because we had done that, and my supervisor who took over when she left was kind of already in the know and knew what the plan was, I really got a pass with regard to having to, really justify why I was going to school, where you planning to stay, all those kind of things. So, again, when you look back, you're like, man, it all worked out like it was supposed to.
Yeah. I think one of the things in what you just shared that women need to hear is just to slow down and not be in such a hurry to get to that end destination in your career. I feel like so many young women in their first or second or even third job in the workplace are in a big hurry for a title or for supervision or for the next promotion, that they forget to really be thoughtful about where their career is going. And what you shared there was just, I think, really valuable for them to hear.
It took a long time. And I mean, it took a long time to get to the start of law school and this career. And it's literally been 10 years, right, since all that happened. And it's been a whole evolution since then. So I do think you always have to be cognizant. And I can honestly say up until that point, I really hadn't given a lot of thought to what my career, I was on a roller coaster. Like I had been introduced and given opportunities that I didn't even know existed. And I think that's part of what my learning has been and why I'm so invested in giving back to younger generations is because it really is hard to know what you want to be if you don't even know what exists. I have literally just kind of had great mentors that introduced me to things. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, wow, okay, I can do that. But I mean, think about, and when I think about it retrospectively, I'm like, everything happened the way it was supposed to. But if I would have even known that patent law was a real thing, maybe I would have went the traditional path and gone right out of college to law school. I don't regret what I did. And for patent law in particular, I needed those years at Lilly to be a scientist. Like, it is invaluable to me now. But it's just the point that you can't be what you can't see. You can't reach for something if you don't even know it exists, right? So I think that has been, and that title, what I think a lot of people are seeking a title, whatever that means, and don't really understand the journey that it often takes to get to, like when you talk to exactly what your series is doing, talking to women who lead, you'll typically learn that they've kind of done like this. It hasn't been, oh, in 7th grade, I decided I was going to be CEO and I went, straight. It usually doesn't work like that, you know? And when you talk to the women who are leading and have that title, they'll tell you, well, I'm here now, but I actually went 3 years to Japan for this. And I, took this crazy role that a headhunter sent that I didn't even think I was qualified for, but I did that for a year, so you'll learn that it really is this kind of winding path that gets you to that, premier position just when you're supposed to be there. I can honestly say that even being an attorney, I wasn't necessarily ready for all the responsibility that being a private practice attorney brings. I'm appreciative and astounded by all these young people who do the traditional path and at 22 and 23 are, it's a lot. It's a lot. So I appreciate the journey. I just think it's necessary. And you get all the lessons you need on that path.
Yeah. So will you talk a little bit about managing being a mom and a wife and a law student and a scientist and a leader all at the same time? How did you navigate all of that?
So if I am absolutely honest, and of course I'm going to be, I had a heck of a lot of help. I kind of, when I look back, my husband carried a lot. He carried a lot. He became not a stay-at-home dad. He worked, but we kind of switched roles. He had gone from being the bread maker and working all the crazy hours, and I was more the 9 to 5 kind of steady person, pick up the kids at school, to completely flip-flopping. And now that was him because I was going to night school. So, I wasn't even seen. But I relied a lot. And now that we've been home on quarantine and I'm cooking dinner, and I realized how much I was relying on him and didn't even necessarily know. So that was a challenge. And I did it kind of full throttle. In other words, I wouldn't say I checked out of my life, but I did what I felt like I needed to do to be successful. And that meant a lot of crazy nights, a lot of, studying after working. So I really did kind of remove myself, not intentionally from my family. And this is not advice. Don't do this. Because as I think about it, I came out of it okay. I got the degree. I passed the bar. My family didn't fall apart, thank God. But the reality is, it could have. I mean, I really did. And I think that challenge is difficult enough where you do have to figure out. There's some things that are going to give, right? I missed a lot of games. I shouldn't say that. One of the beauties and blessings of my law school career was I did do it when my son was fairly young. So he was about 4 when I went to law school, and he was about 8-ish when I graduated. So the good news is I went at a time where he didn't have a lot going on. He was still a baby
Right.
for the most part, right? And I graduated just as he was really beginning to get busy and getting involved with basketball and start doing kind of extracurricular things that I could be involved in. So I was really thankful for that. But still, those baby years, I was kind of hit and miss, wasn't doing, still not doing, quite frankly, a lot of cooking and cleaning, there was a lot that, and then just the social, not social, but the support that comes with going to law school, needing to make those connections, because what they don't tell you when you go to law school is the school part is just half of it. Then it's the networking and getting out there and, getting people ready to hire you and all that. It was so much more than I think I realized. It was not grad school where you just do the books, take an exam, and you're done. Like, it wasn't that. So it was a challenge. And the late nights, I told you I was knocking on 40. I used to pull some serious late nights, all nighters, go to sleep for 2 hours, wake up and go to it again. I used to spend a lot of time at Lilly studying. I probably shouldn't say that, but I don't work there anymore, so it's right. But just kind of doing it however you can, like getting the time in. But it was challenging. It was challenging for everybody. And I remember having conversations with my husband about, it is not a win to graduate law school and my family fall apart. I mean, that was serious to me. Because at the end of the day, men can do this all day. It's harder when it's mommy that's not the one at home and doesn't have dinner on the table. I mean, I know we're all, 20th century women and all that, but gender roles are real, especially in a family setting, and a man coming home every night to, his wife not being there and, the kid. That's hard. I mean, that's hard to navigate. Even with it being a greater goal in mind and all that, when you're in it, it's a challenge. But we made it through, and we're better for it. My family has completely benefited. I remember when my son was young, and I told him, I'll never forget it, when I told him I was leaving Lilly, because I had worked at Lilly as long as he had been born. I had him while I was at Lilly. So Lilly's all he knew, and his dad worked at Best Buy. That's all he knew. And I remember telling him I was leaving Lilly, and he cried. I was like, oh, baby, it's okay. Like, but he knew, like, life's changing. Something is going to be different. And I also remember when we first went to a game or something, did a client business development with, and my son got to come. He's like, oh, Mom, we weren't doing this at Lilly. And I'm like, yeah, Mom's trying to help us out, babe. Like all this hard work getting for nothing. But, I think it was one of the first time where he kind of got it. Like, oh, yeah, she was gone and she was doing a lot, but I'm now kind of seeing why, right? And I think that was huge. But it wasn't easy. I mean, there is no question. And in fact, Jessica, when I was doing my year of research and talking to people about going to law school, I had a man tell me that he and his wife got divorced when he was going through law school. And he says one of the biggest regrets that he had was that he got so caught up that he let his family slip away. And I remember him distinctly telling me, don't do that. Make sure, as serious as it gets, that you keep your family together. And I appreciated that. That's real talk. And I didn't even know him like that, but it was obviously pressing on him to tell me that. And I appreciate it, because when you're in the thick of things, you need those voices, to keep you pushing.
Yeah, that's awesome. So obviously you've encountered some challenges. Tell me, what do you think's been critical to your success? I mean, I could probably pick a few things out, but I want to hear from you.
I have always been told and taught that I can do anything. My mother instilled that in me, my family, And I tell people all the time, I was crazy enough to believe her. Like, I truly, truly do believe I can do what, and after law school and all that, I've actually proven it to myself now. Before, it just used to be the nice thing my mom said. Now, after, kind of going through some real things, I'm like, oh yeah, I really do believe I can do anything. And I have the work ethic. I think one of the things that really distinguishes me from whoever else I may or may not be compared to is my work ethic. I work. Like, and when you don't come from nothing, grit, grind, that's all you got, right? You don't have credentials. You don't have nobody to vouch for you. You don't have, the pedigree. All you have is say, hey, if you give me a chance, I promise I'll work. And so I think my husband and I talk all the time. It's a work ethic that I don't necessarily feel this generation, like my son's generation, has, because that's all we really had. And I think anyone who knows me and has given me any real opportunity can say she'll work. Like, she's not scared of hard work. And I'm really serious about what I do. I don't commit to things that I don't know I can give my 110%. So when I signed up for law school and they let me in, I knew, okay, this is what it is. And, I just talked to you, I kind of neglected my family a little bit. But when I look back, I don't think I did anything that I didn't need to do to get to success. Like, nothing, not a single long night or loss of sleep. I don't think I did anything extra. I did what I needed to do to get to the finish line. And I think that's one thing about me, is that people know that she'll do what she needs to do to get to success. On the flip side, when I get there, I'm going to party and I'm going to have a good time, and we're going to have a couple drinks. And, so I think that's also actually fun to be around. Like, when it's time to play, we play hard. When it's time to work, we work hard, right? And I think that's all you can really ask from just about anybody. Anybody you hire or you work with, you just want them to do their job, do it as best as they can, and to be serious about it. And then when you reach that goal, that metric, you land that client, you do whatever, it's time to celebrate. And, and that's what kind of motivates you to ramp up and do it again. If there's never that, kind of celebration and good job, it's hard to get motivated to put in that kind of work and genuine effort to achieve whatever the goal is, whether it's a corporate goal or your personal goal, your, marital goals, your career goals, whatever. I mean, I just think nothing comes without hard work. And if it does, it's probably not worth a whole lot. That's just kind of where I sit on things.
Yeah, I come from the country, from a relatively humble beginning too, and I think that's a thread that you learn. I think especially when you come from the country, right? It's like no handouts, work hard,
that's right.
And it's just this constant like proving yourself, and because there's all these people who think that you can't do it.
Yeah.
And you sort of develop this mentality of watch me.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. And I can tell you, I've probably been a bit naive. I'm more, as I've gotten older and more exposure, really the perceptions of me, I think, are more relevant, or I appreciate the perceptions. Again, I grew up knowing you're a Black female, it's going to be harder for you, but it's not impossible. That's not an excuse, and that was just, you work. That's how you overcome that. You work, and get an education, right? Education and work ethic were kind of our key to everything, like that'll get you through. And so I've just kind of plowed through, and I've realized that as I've gotten older, that the perceptions of what I should be doing or where I should come from, like, I'm challenged by that, but it is kind of, okay, watch me, like that's not even relevant to, what, and again, at this point, I've done enough and gone through enough that there's not too much, I think you can throw at me that, especially on a career, we're not talking personal, but more career wise.
Sure.
I've already, left a position that I just thought had my name on it. I've kind of gotten derailed career wise, and you bounce back and realize I'm all the better for it. So once you've gone through a couple things like that, it's kind of like, okay, I can't get all broken up if one thing doesn't go my way. Something better is bound to come along. That's just how, things go.
Yeah. Well, I for a lot of our people who will watch this recording at some point, there'll be a lot of Indianapolis people who already know who you are. But for people who aren't from Indianapolis, they should know that Angela's pretty well known in the city. She's kind of a big deal.
I don't know about all that.
She's also very modest about
it.
Notorious or infamous, I don't know. But Angela, you're also the president of Women in High Tech currently. And you've done an incredible job of being an advocate for women in STEM, but also African-American women and women of color in the city. Will you talk about some of that networking that you've done and how you were able to do that? Because I think that's one thing that women really want to do, but they don't know how to do it well and meaningfully. And you're so good at it. I'd love to get your advice.
We talk about this all the time, particularly at Women in High Tech, but just generally, right? Networking, business development. And I think one of the struggles for people, particularly women in STEM, who are, I'll use the stereotype, typically maybe a little more introverted, not so willing to just go out and I think the challenge is it feels so uncomfortable because it's so contrary to their normal being of just being out and talking. I think you said I do it good. I think one of the reasons, if there's any reason to perceive that I network well, is because I genuinely enjoy people. Like I genuinely have no problem walking in a room, not knowing a single person, and just walking up and talking to people. I've just learned that if you don't come from anything, you got to do that. If you walk into a room and nobody knows you and you leave that room after an hour and still nobody knows, that's on you. You cannot expect people to come and cater to you. You got to walk up to a table full of women in full conversation, say, hello, my name's Angela Freeman. How are you? I'd like to meet you. Or what are you talking about? Or whatever, And I enjoy the ability to walk up to random people and just learn from them. I've learned that every person is a person to learn something from. And I have learned, just random stuff, random facts, just things that, again, with my exposure and my background, just would never knew existed. But I ran into some person at a reception or the grocery store or whatever. And I want to make this clear. I love people and I'm very social, but I'm also very introverted. That whole extroverted, introverted thing is absolutely real. People who know me, people watching this will be like, oh yeah, she does this all the time. But the reality is, I can go talk to anyone, have no problem, and enjoy it. That's fun to me. But when I'm done, I'm done. When I go home, don't call me. Don't come by. I'm one of them people that if you come by my house unannounced, oh, Angela, I just happened to be in the neighborhood, you will be standing out there knocking. Like, I don't play that, but that's also because I'm so social, right? And as a private practice attorney, you have to be out there and talking to people. You have to save some time for yourself. So when I come home and I'm done, I really am done. And I, even with quarantine, I've had no problem sitting at home and doing my work and get on a couple Zoom calls, but I don't need to be out and about all the time to feel I'm good, but when it's time, I've also learned, and that's through being a scientist and being an attorney and being just a woman of color, when it's time to be on, you better be on, right? Because all eyes are on you and you've got to make that happen. So, I think it's important. I go out all the time just to meet people. You say people know me. I feel like I've been in Indianapolis for almost 20 years. and I meet people every day. I learn about a new restaurant every single day. Like there is so much that I have not experienced, and people I don't know, and things I don't know. And I've been here for 20 years. So I think it's all, you have to have that desire to keep learning and to, I don't really understand the perception of people that kind of get on this, okay, I'm good. I don't need anybody else. I just don't know where that comes from. And again, maybe it's because I don't come from a lot. But I've just learned there's so much more to learn throughout my life that it's just exciting to continue to do. I don't really meet people for people to know Angela. I've got 150 LinkedIn requests right now, people who I don't know them. I'm not accepting their requests. Like, I don't know you.
They want to sell you something.
Yeah, exactly. That's my thought. A lot of financial advisors who think because I'm an attorney, I have no money. Like, but on the flip side, I really do appreciate having women and knowing the resources that are out there. Like, having someone say, we need to reach out to a videographer to do it, and say, oh, I know somebody who does that, and that's just with talking to people. I mean, you can do all the networking and marketing, etc., but there is nothing like just going and meeting somebody and saying, man, I just met her 3 days ago, but she was awesome. And I would love to find an opportunity where we can somehow work together or do something together. I'm all about promoting women and women businesses. And, so as much as we can do to support each other, I'm real serious about that now, probably even more because I'm a private practice attorney. I need people to bring work to me, legal work, as compared to anybody else. So I get the whole business piece of it, the marketing piece. You're kind of selling your services, which, another thing they don't tell you in law school. So it's all about reciprocity. If I want women to come to me, then I need to be supporting women businesses and women entrepreneurs and women, as much as I can.
Yeah. So what advice do you have for women, particularly younger early career women? What advice do you have for them if they're looking to advance or lead, start a business, whatever?
So back to women in high tech. One of my greatest advantages I've received has been through women in high tech, having an opportunity to lead. Remember, I told you, I've never been a manager, I've never been a supervisor, and chose not to. But still, you need to have an opportunity to lead a team, lead a group of people. What Women in High Tech, which is a nonprofit organization and board, has allowed me to do is to get that kind of leadership experience. And so I often advise young career professionals who have, been in their career a few years. So first of all, I'm a real stickler for make sure you're an expert first before you start chasing all the opportunities and all the recognition of being so wonderful. Make sure you truly are recognized as an expert in your field. And that really don't happen in a year. That typically takes 3 to 5 years at least to just kind of get on people's radar. Mm-hmm. But beyond that, look for opportunities. If you're not getting that next level, when you finally done that and you're looking for that promotion or that leadership opportunity and you're not getting it, look for extracurricular opportunities to show your leadership. If you're not getting that in your career or your job, go and join a nonprofit board or an organization where you can be an officer and have a leadership role. And yeah, it's extra work. But number one, as far as I'm concerned, you should be giving back anyway at every level in your career. You should be giving back to the people who are coming behind you. But it also is an opportunity to show leadership in a way that you may not just inherently get in your career. Right. And that's a really good way to, show that I'm ready for that next promotion. I know I haven't had an opportunity to show my management or leadership skills in this position, but I've done all of these things in the community that are recognized, and are really making impact. And that stuff counts. I mean, because I don't know any corporation who doesn't want one of their employees to also be a good community citizen. They typically just kind of go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's great advice. That's new advice too. Yeah. Okay. So last question. What do you think is if you had to pick one critical skill or trait that a woman needs to be successful, what is it? Just one.
Yeah, that's hard.
Or the first one, the most critical.
You said a skill or a trait. So I'm going to say beyond the expert piece, right? Because I really do think that is critical. That's first and foremost. Beyond anything else, you have to be really good and perceived to be good. Not just you think you're good, but people around you think you're excellent at what you do. And not just good, excellent. But beyond that, I think you do have to kind of be an advocate for yourself. In other words, you need to walk in a room and people know you're there. There shouldn't be a meeting where you kind of come, take notes and leave and your voice isn't heard. And I don't mean in an annoying way or a way where people are rolling their eyes and saying, oh God, she's talking again. Be poignant, have a real good point to make it and you're done. But make it where people are like, now that was good. Like that was a really good. I think you have to kind of get on stage. I think maybe that's it. The not being fearful of being in the limelight, like step into the light, like step in with power and a sense of I belong here. And I know what I'm talking about, and you're going to listen to me, and not in a bad way, not in a, crazy woman way, whatever we're perceived, but just look, I'm the real deal. I tell people all the time, like, I know you don't know me, but I'm the real deal. Like, I don't know any other way to explain to people who really don't know me. Like, I'm an excellent attorney. I'm a great person. I'm somebody, like I'm worth your investment. And I think that's really when you leave a room or you leave a meeting or what you want people to know is I'm worth your investment. If you mess with me, if you do a deal with me, if you, join an organization with me, if you get behind me, I'm not going to do you wrong. I'm worth your investment. And I think that I have gotten it. I'm transparent enough. One thing I've learned is I kind of let it all out and people take me at my word and realize like, she's just way too vocal and bold. That must really be who she is. And it is. And I think people are more willing to deal with you when they know who you are and not always like, I just don't know how she's going to come. One day she's this and the next day she's that. People don't want to deal with that. Like, and it's the same whether you're happy, sad. When I'm upset, people know I'm upset. When I'm blowing up for joy because something awesome just happened, like I'm going to make the biggest deal out of it. It is. And that's just transparency. Yeah. And I think people appreciate that. So authenticity, transparency, and, be in the room, be in the moment. Like if you have an opportunity to contribute. Don't pass it off to John or Susie or whatever. Like make a point. Think about something you're going to make a point about before you walk into the room so that you're relevant. Otherwise, why are you there?
I love that. You had a couple really good one-liners that I wrote down. So I love that. But like you said, step into the light. And I think that's so important. I think, as women, we're taught like sit down, be small, be quiet, right. Shrink away, don't speak too much, don't have an opinion, like all of that stuff. And I think what you just said is really like, do the opposite of that. Do the opposite of everything we've been taught maybe as women in our lives.
Yeah. And the reality is, as I work with more and more men in business, the idea of just having a woman on the team, they recognize just like we recognize, those days are gone. people know if Angela's going to be on the team, she's going to be on it. She's going to say what she thinks. She's going to try to run things. She's going, she's going to be on it. And they don't invite me unless that's what they want, right? And I think that's kind of what it is. The days of just having a woman on team to take notes, some days are over with. And I think most people appreciate that. Not everybody, I mean, obviously. But most people are not going to ask you, not going to ask you, Jessica, and certainly not going to ask me, Angela, and anybody else to sit on the team that is not, that does not value your contribution. And what I have learned being a diverse woman in STEM and law is that I truly do have a perspective that most people just don't know or don't appreciate. Just like I'm a country girl, I don't know nothing about the city. They don't know nothing about being a Black woman. They can't know that, right? And just how different things affect are perceived by different people. And being able to bring that voice to the team and say, okay, I understand what we're trying, maybe we shouldn't say it like that. Maybe we can word it differently. Or, just whatever, or maybe we don't roll it out on this day because I know this is a major holiday for this community. Maybe we roll it out 2 weeks later or whatever. Just coming with those different perspectives that, again, nobody can have but you. And that is the beauty of having a diverse team. And that's truly me too. I'm a Black woman. I know my experience as a Black woman. I don't know all experiences as a Black person or as a Black female. And I certainly don't know the experience of a Muslim woman or an African woman or a Mexican woman or, those are experiences that even I don't appreciate, which is why I love having those people around me because they inform me on things that I just wouldn't know if I didn't have them around. And for me, that makes my life very, very rich. I enjoy that, which is why, again, I enjoy people. I love just talking to the random person in the reception who's talking about, absolutely nothing, but it's something I wouldn't have known about, and you leave there like, okay, wow, I wouldn't have known about that.
Sometimes you're like, I wish I wouldn't have known about that.
Yeah. But sometimes you are, okay. And that's part of it, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But, for most times, I'm like, wow, that was really a cool person. And I would have never met them, but for I walked into this building on this day. That's typically the experience. And that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Well, Angela, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a pleasure. I will vouch for you. You are fun. I've been in rooms with you before. You are fun. I will vouch for you that you are the real deal. And I'm so grateful to have had you today on Ladies Leading. And we just want to thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you so much. I just feel like I ran my mouth with a girlfriend. So hopefully something in all this stuff I've talked about is helpful for people. But regardless, I thank you for having me for sure.
Of course. We want to thank all of you for tuning in with us today as well. It's our hope that you'll find insight and inspiration from Angela's story and that you'll join us next time as we pass the microphone to another female leader. Want to give a special thanks to our sponsor, the Center for Leadership Excellence. They're on a mission to make organizations great places for women to work. You can learn more about the center at cleindy.com. Be sure to visit us at ladies-leading.com, where you will find more information, past episodes, and also a way you can recommend a leader to be on our show. Thanks for joining us. Another great episode, don't you agree? If I could bottle Angela's confidence and take it with me, I totally would. I think there's two really critical lessons that I want you to take from Angela's episode and from her story. One is about leadership. I think Angela is such a great example of an informal leader, someone who doesn't necessarily always have a title, but does an incredible job of leading when she has the opportunity to. I think in today's world, there's an obsession with titles. We go from director to senior director and from senior director to VP and from VP to senior VP. And we're obsessed with climbing this proverbial ladder towards the ceiling that we're eventually going to have to break as women. And the reality is that's just a tiny component of what it means to lead, having a title or a position of power or leading a team in an organization. And Angela is such a testament to that. She took all of these opportunities to lead in really informal and important ways. And she won an award for it, for being a leader without ever having a title. There was this point in the episode where she said, there shouldn't be a meeting where your voice isn't heard. Be in the room. If you have an opportunity to contribute, contribute. And that's another example of leadership without a title. Angela showed up and she contributed. And when we contribute in meetings and in interactions with our colleagues and in brainstorming sessions and in business events, those show innovation and creativity. They show critical thinking skills. They show our ability to challenge the process and think outside the box and problem solve. And those are critical skills that people look for in leaders that aren't really about leading a team, that aren't really about profit and loss statements or even financial reports. That's the stuff people look for. And that's just a piece of what it means to be a leader. You know, I think that we as women, sometimes we sit in those rooms and we think we have to have permission to talk or share an opinion, or maybe we have to have expertise or a title to talk in those moments. And the reality is that we bring valuable insight and perspective into those conversations, and that we need to show up to those conversations with an idea of what our opinion is and with some intentions to contribute to the conversation. You know, Angela really talked about that, about how she showed up to every conversation ready to contribute and for people to know that she was in the room. And I think that that is really a way that we can show leadership as women. The other thing that she said was look for extracurricular opportunities to show your leadership, especially if you're not getting it in your career or job. Took lots of notes again, in case you were wondering. And I think that that's the other piece of it. If you do want titles, or if you do want experience leading a team, or if you do want to look at a profit and loss statement and know what it looks like and how to use it and how to read it, then look for those opportunities in your workplace. And if you can't get them in the workplace, look for them outside. There's lots of nonprofits and volunteer opportunities where you can get those experiences, and people inside your organization that might even mentor you in those ways. And I think that you have all these different opportunities as a way to lead that aren't really about a title or permission nonetheless. And I think that we have to start to look at those things as a way to show our leadership as women. That is a very intrinsic trait in a lot of male leaders, is that they walk into rooms believing they have an opinion, and they openly and freely share those opinions in most of those environments. And that's why leaders continue to go to them for advice or for insight or for perspective or for an opinion. And we have the opportunity to be those people as well. It's just in most of those environments, we don't show up believing our opinion matters. We show up ready to listen instead of ready to just share our opinions too. And I think we have to get more practice at that, to show up expecting to contribute, to show up with an opinion and believing that that opinion matters. Angela is such a great testament to that. And her story, there's so many pieces in there that are woven throughout that demonstrate how she showed up and spoke up, and people knew she was in the room. And people thought that her contributions were powerful and meaningful and helpful and added to the conversation, not just detracted, and not just were repeating things other people already had said. So that's lesson one that I want to make sure that you hear. Leadership isn't always about a title. It isn't always formal and about positions of authority. It can be informal, and it's about understanding that if we want to lead, we can look for those opportunities outside the organization, but we also can show up and share our opinions and give valuable insight and add to the conversations that we're having in the workplace instead of sitting idly by and taking notes. The second thing that I think Angela really demonstrated, and the lesson I want you to get from her story, is about self-advocacy. She even said it when I asked for advice. She said, be an advocate for yourself. You need to walk into a room and people know that you're there. And I think that that was such an important moment. You know, based on future guests that we'll have on Ladies Leading, we'll talk about lots of different ways that you can advocate for yourself in the workplace. But one of the things that I think Angela demonstrates so well is about being seen and being heard as a way to advocate for yourself and having confidence in that regard. She said towards the end of the episode, and we shared it on social media, but it was a longer quote that we condensed for social media. And I want to read you the full quote in case you missed it. She said, "Don't be fearful of being in the limelight. Step into the light. Step in with power and a sense of, I belong here. I know what I'm talking about, and you're going to listen to me." I think that that type of confidence, but also that mentality of, I belong here, I know what I'm talking about, and you're going to listen to me, is a mindset of self-advocacy. I think that we make excuses in a lot of examples of saying, I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't belong in this room. We have all of this imposter syndrome that who let us in this room? Who invited us to the meeting? I can't believe I'm with all these important people. And we have to believe that if we're in the room, we are supposed to be in the room, and that we were asked to be in the room because our opinion matters and our voice is desired. And so I think that that is a version of self-advocacy, is writing a different story in our own brains. Not that we're an imposter in a room full of experts, but that we belong here and that our voice matters and that we know what we're talking about and that people want to listen to us. Angela is such a great example of this, and she's such a true testament of how to advocate for yourself in that regard. When she joined the employee engagement group for African American employees at Lilly, one of the things that she believed was that she spoke up, and she believed that her opinion mattered in those spaces. And she received a Global Diversity Award for it because she was willing to speak up and engage, and she believed her voice mattered in those spaces. And I think that that is such a true testament of how we advocate for ourselves. We have to show up, and we have to believe that our voice matters. And we have to believe if we are sitting in the room, that we belong in that room and that our voice is needed in that room. That's a version of self-advocacy, in addition to all the other things that we'll talk about. So we need to make sure that we understand that leadership isn't just about titles. And we need to understand that a part of the way we can advocate for ourselves in the workplace is to be in the room, to be seen in the room, and to be heard in the room, and to believe that we belong there and that our voice matters in those spaces. Thanks again for joining us this week on Ladies Leading. We hope you're enjoying this series. Check us out next week for another episode. You can also visit us at ladies-leading.com, where you can see the past episodes, recommend a woman to be on our show, and learn more about the project. We also want to take the opportunity again to thank our sponsor, the Center for Leadership Excellence. They're actively working with organizations to improve culture to make better places for women to work. You can learn more at cleindy.com. Thanks all. We'll see you next week on Ladies Leading.